On Saturday, the man who shot and killed Jordan Davis was convicted on 3 counts of second-degree attempted murder. Michael Dunn, who fired 10 times at the car Jordan Davis and 3 of his friends were riding in, will be sentenced to at least 60 years in prison on those 3 convictions for attempted murder. For Michael Dunn, who is 47 years old, that is effectively a life sentence. The jury could not reach a unanimous verdict on the charge of first-degree murder of Jordan Davis.
We have to sit down with our victim's family. Obviously, we hope to do that in the next couple of weeks, but as far as we're concerned right now, we intend to retry him. Retry Michael Dunn on first-degree murder.
Jordan Davis' parents spoke shortly after the verdict.
It's sad for Mr. Dunn that he will live the rest of his life in that sense of torment. And I will pray for him. And I've asked my family to pray for him. But we are so grateful for the charges that have been brought against him. We are so grateful for the truth. We are so grateful that the jurors were able to understand the common sense of it all. And we will continue to stand, and we will continue to wait for justice for Jordan.
All human beings, we love our children, we love our families, and we don't accept a law that would allow collateral damage to our family members. We raise them not to fear each other, we raise them to be good citizens in America, and we expect the law to be behind us and protect us. And that's what I wanted the law to do, is protect Jordan as we protected Jordan.
Michael Dunn's defense attorney says that he plans to appeal the 3 convictions of attempted murder. Joining me now, Larry Hannan, a court reporter who covered the trial for the Florida Times-Union, Mark Thompson, host of Make It Plain on Sirius XM Radio, and legal analyst Lisa Bloom, author of the upcoming book about the Trayvon Martin case, Suspicion Nation. Larry, tell us what it was like in the courtroom when this jury verdict came back.
It was incredibly tense and very emotional. We saw both parents, the parents of Jordan Davis and the parents of Michael Dunn, crying, which is obviously not something you would expect. I said in my story that no one was really happy with this verdict, even though Michael Dunn is almost certainly going to jail for the rest of his life. There was a sense of incompleteness about it. And I'll mention, Dunn seemed shocked. I really think he thought he was going to be acquitted of all charges.
Well, Lisa Bloom, Dunn is a very strange person based on everything we've collected in the evidence so far. In his writings, since he's been held awaiting trial, he seems to have very strange reactions to things that happen around him, including when he's in parking lots in situations like he was in this case.
Right. Well, that's charitable, Lawrence. I mean, I've read a lot of his jailhouse letters. He's very arrogant. He was quite confident that he was going to be acquitted in this case. He really had no doubt about it. He referred to African Americans as thugs and gangsters on a number of occasions. He said it would be great if more people would do what he did. And he said, the more I get to know those people, referring to African Americans, the more prejudiced I become. I mean, this is a man who was really quite open about his dislike of African Americans. Those letters, by the way, never made it into this trial.
Mark Thompson, 60 years in prison, assuming he is unsuccessful on appeal. That is the rest of his life. That is a life sentence. How do you measure and define justice in a situation like this? Is it the sentence? Is it the specificity that's returned in the verdicts combined with the sentence?
Well, ultimately, it's all of the above, but I think we have to acknowledge many people feel that justice has not been complete, that it is partial. It's hard to make sense out of one being held responsible, as he was in 4 of the 5 counts, one being held responsible for attempting to murder 3 people in a car, held responsible for shooting the car, and not held responsible for the 4th person who actually died in the car. I think that's very confusing. I think the good news out of all of this is, of course, he will serve those 60 years. I think that's without a doubt. The other good news is that this is going to be retried. And the most important piece of good news, I think, and I was watching the video as it was just being shown before we came on, the tremendous dignity of this family, Jordan's parents and what they represent. I don't know how many of us could be so strong under those circumstances. And whatever the case may be, as they show their dignity and they show their grace, we all must still continue on their behalf to stand up for justice for Jordan Davis.
Let's listen then to more from Ron Davis, Jordan's father.
He was a good kid. It wasn't allowed to be said in the courtroom that he was a good kid, but we'll say it. He was a good kid. There's a lot of good kids out there, a lot of good nephews, a lot of good grandsons, granddaughters, nieces, and they should have a voice, that they shouldn't live in fear and walk around the streets worrying about if someone has a problem with somebody else, that if they get shot, it's just collateral damage. There's no such thing to parents that their child suffered collateral damage.
Larry Hannan, what is the possibilities in terms of both things that are coming? One, the defense appeal, and then secondly, the prosecution retrial on one count.
Well, I think it's difficult to say with the appeal right now, but anytime a jury is out for 32 hours, there's likely going to be some areas for appellate attorneys to look at and argue that the jury instructions weren't good, or some of the juror questions, there were 8 of them, were not answered properly. As for the retrial, one of the more interesting things, and we just heard Ron Davis kind of allude to it in his commentary, is we really didn't get to know Jordan Davis at all during the trial. Someone made the point to me, the prosecutors acknowledged he had a big mouth, but no one really told you stories about him. We never saw his baby pictures. His parents didn't really talk about him. And a lot of people think that the prosecutors made a mistake with that we learned a lot about Michael Dunn, but we learned almost nothing about Jordan Davis.
Lisa Bloom, what's your reading of the defense appeal prospects and the prosecution's retrial prospects?
Well, I don't see any grounds for appeal. Most of the jury questions were agreed to by both sides, and the answers were fairly obvious. So I don't see grounds for appeal. I mean, maybe there's something when a good attorney comes over it, but I don't see anything. The prosecution has said they're going to retry the case. Angela Corey, the lead prosecutor, the state attorney, has said she's going to retry him for first-degree murder. I think that's a big mistake. Premeditation is an issue that everybody got hung up on. The jury came back with second-degree attempted murder. They could agree on that. So I say retry him for second-degree murder. I think that would provide the accountability, and don't make the case too hard for the prosecutors to win. I think these prosecutors need to take a hard look at the mistakes they've been making.
Lisa, did the jury have an option of returning second-degree murder?
Yes, they did. The options they had were first degree, second degree, third degree, or manslaughter.
So why then would it be a better prosecution to proceed on a second degree charge if they already had that option to go for second degree?
Because the prosecutors were going for first-degree murder. They spent a lot of time arguing about premeditation, which is required for first-degree murder. You also lose credibility in a courtroom when you're trying to win on charges that you just don't have a factual basis for. Technically, yes, premeditation can be formed in an instant, but most people don't think of it that way. So if I'm an attorney, right, I'm only putting charges in front of a jury that I'm pretty confident I can win.
Yeah, that's the big issue with premeditation. Is it sounds, I think, to most people like planning. It sounds like the word planning, and they don't realize that sometimes in these cases premeditation occurs within a minute of the event. But Mark Thompson, I want to show the audience a political cartoon that appeared in the Miami Herald here in Miami this morning, really quite stunning, referencing the situation with stand your ground laws here in Florida. Tombstones with simple explanations of who's under that tombstone, and they all fit within things we've heard about particular uses of stand your ground shootings and killings here in Florida. Played music too loud is one of them. Texted in a movie theater is another one. Wore a hoodie, it says, on one of those tombstones. Looked a bit threatening, it says on another tombstone. Road rage. There's a bunch of them there, Mark Thompson, and they all describe reasons familiar to Floridians and now to the nation about what apparently can get you killed here in the state of Florida. And you know, that's very true. I tweeted out that same cartoon by Jim Moran in Miami over the weekend. We've got another case coming up, the case of Ricardo Saenz, who was 21 years old, who was shot down, and another individual is claiming self-defense. So it is very, very clear that this is a problem. And even where the stand your ground law is not formally invoked or imposed, there is obviously this culture, this feeling in Florida, again, that African Americans are some type of existential threat. It's interesting, though, we not only do we need to change that law, but maybe we need to inform more juries, because the fact of the matter is, when you have a jury for a self-defense trial such as this, it actually means that the stand your ground hearing was either not pursued or didn't prevail before a judge. Maybe it's kind of like premeditation. People need to be a bit more educated on what those matters are. Premeditation does only take a matter of moments. But the bottom line is we still have to do all we can to let this family know and to let all of our young people know that we care about them. Jordan could have been my son. He could have been a son of any one of us. Trayvon could have been a son of any one of us. And we have to do all we can to let them know that as their parents, as all adults, we're here to protect and defend them. Because if we don't, our children ultimately are going to use faith in us. It is our duty to protect all of our children, and they must see us stand up for these young men, lest they be our own. Larry Hannan, I want to go back to Lisa's point about a first-degree murder charge versus a second-degree murder charge. And if you've hung around courtrooms a lot, you've seen juries plenty of time return a conviction on what they call the lesser-included charge. It's someone charged with murder one, and then they end up being convicted of second-degree murder or manslaughter. What is your sense of why the jury didn't go for a second-degree murder conviction or a manslaughter conviction?
Lawrence, I'm not sure, but it became abundantly clear during deliberations that there were some jurors that didn't seem to want to consider any conviction for Jordan Davis. We don't know which jurors those were, but they did have the option of second degree and manslaughter, and I think there were 2 or 3 jurors who honestly believed that Michael Dunn was acting in self-defense when he fired at Jordan Davis, who were willing to concede attempted murder because he later fired at the car as it was driving away. So that's why they got him for attempted murder. But for whatever reason, it was partly maybe Davis did curse at Dunn. It's partly maybe they believed the story that Jordan Davis had a shotgun, even though no gun was ever found. But for whatever reason, they just couldn't get anything else. And I should also mention, Angela Corey also prosecuted George Zimmerman, and a lot of people said she shouldn't have gone for second-degree murder. She should have gone for manslaughter instead. It does seem as though this office has a tendency to try to go pretty high, and sometimes it doesn't work.
Larry Hannan, Lisa Bloom, and Mark Thompson, thank you all very much for joining me tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.